Good afternoon, guys. Today's presentation is about ATP, the cell's energy source, as well as photosynthesis, just the basics. We're not going to get into the details of photosynthesis that much today. The things you need to know about as we're moving through is that plants obviously do photosynthesis. They create energy from the sun's energy. And animals like us, we have to consume our energy, right? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. And the first thing we're going to look at is just the basics of photosynthesis. You will need to be able to identify this formula here. You don't have to understand and recite it from zero. You just need to be able to identify it. And the key thing to look for is, does it start with CO2 or does it start with oxygen? Humans, us, we breathe in oxygen. We don't breathe in CO2 on purpose, right? So if it starts with CO2, it's going to be photosynthesis. So you just need to be able to identify this formula here. Right? I'm just saying what happens in the leaf, in the plant cell, and the chloroplast, which we'll get into a little bit later. All right, so we're going to start off by looking at ATP. ATP is the energy that's used by the cells. All right, and the mitochondria, that organelle we talked about last unit, that converts the energy from glucose into ATP. All right, so that's the mitochondria's job. That's why it's called the powerhouse of the cell. It makes the energy from glucose. All right, ATP stands for adenine triphosphate. It's just the molecule where it's all stored at. This here, the NADP plus and NADPH negative, these are actually just molecules that help carry ATP around the cell. That's what you need to know about those, okay? So ATP is adenine triphosphate. And here's a diagram of it. Here's adenine here. It's an amino acid. Ribose, it's just a 5-carbon sugar. And then 3 phosphate groups, 1, 2, 3. And all of the energy is stored right here in these bonds here. Those 2 bonds there hold lots of energy. So those 2 bonds there is where all the energy is stored at. So when ATP loses a phosphate group, that's when energy gets exploded out of there. That bond breaks, the energy is released. So when this bond here breaks between these 2 phosphates, energy is released, right? And it becomes an ADP, adenine diphosphate. So di means 2, tri means 3. So it was 3 phosphates, now it's 2, but all that energy that was in that bond was released. All right, and you can look at it like ADB is like a partially charged battery and ATP is a fully charged battery. Just a way to look at it. Nothing major. And this is sort of a cycle showing ATP and ADP. All right, now we're going to move into photosynthesis. So what you just need to know what photosynthesis is. It's just when the plant traps the sun's energy and makes glucose. So it's how the plant makes food. All right, the process is carbon dioxide and water. So the carbon dioxide comes from the air. Water comes from the ground. Those are the reactants, plus sunlight coming in here. And the products are glucose, the C6H12O6, that's glucose, and oxygen. All right. So photosynthesis takes place in the leaves, right? And in the leaves, it takes place in the cells, like we mentioned earlier. This is an Elodea cell. Elodea is a water plant. You see all these green little dots? Those are all chloroplasts right there, right? And then within the chloroplast, there's some things you need to know. You need to know the stroma, the thylakoid, and the granum, all right? The stroma is sort of like the cytoplasm of this chloroplast. It's like this gel that fills up the chloroplast. The thylakoid is one, you see these right here? These are all these little discs, these little pancakes. One of those is called a thylakoid. And chlorophyll is inside of that, which makes it all green. And a stack of those is a granum. All right, so you can sort of see a thylakoid, the sac containing the chlorophyll. Right, that's why it's green. The grana is a stack of those. Right, and then the stroma is a liquid that fills up the grana. It just fills up outside the grana. It's like a cytoplasm for the chloroplast. All right, and that's all we need to know today. So what is photosynthesis? It's where the plants may use the sun's energy to create glucose or a food. It takes place in the leaves within the cell plant, or the plant cell, and specifically in the chloroplast. ATP, that is the energy that is made by the mitochondria using glucose. It's the energy for the cell. The energy in an ATP is stored in the bonds between the phosphate groups. And just remember, the mitochondria is what creates the ATP from the glucose. Hope this helps, and I hope to see you guys soon.